So welcome everyone to our monthly all-call wrap meeting with the City of Santa Barbara's Act on Homelessness Collaborative. These are sort of our monthly check-ins with the whole community, just about general updates about what's going on around issues regarding homelessness and housing in the City of Santa Barbara and beyond. This month, we will be focusing primarily on the point-in-time count from 2023 back in January, and we have Jet Black-Mertz from the County Department of Housing and Community Development to share with us. But before we get to that, if you wouldn't mind, just put your name, if you want to introduce yourself in the chat window, that would be great. And if you're with an organization as well. And then I'm going to share just some general announcements. Excuse me while I pull up my screen. All right. So just a few calendar invites to make sure they're on your radar. So there will be an upcoming community meeting with regard to the new Dignity Moves project. There's a headline here that I'm burying, but the headline is that the Dignity Moves project was approved last week by the County Board of Supervisors at the La Posada site, which is the former juvenile hall. So huge kudos to everyone who came out in support of this. This will be a lot of new supportive housing, transitional housing, excuse me, for individuals experiencing homelessness in South Santa Barbara County. I don't know if anyone from the county wants to share more as well. I saw Lucille on the call and Kimberly.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to those who came out to support. We had the question earlier today of sort of why are we having a meeting if it's already approved? And we just really want to continue to educate the community. We want to continue to receive feedback from the community of things we could do to enhance the management and operational plan, which will still go to the board at a later date. So happy to answer any questions about that project, but thank you all.
Thank you, Kimberly. And if I can just ask everyone to please mute yourself if you're not sharing, that would be great. So we encourage you to come on out to the Living Faith Center just to learn more, or if you're already an ally and advocate, it'd be great to just have voices of support. The other upcoming event is we'll have our monthly neighborhood walk on June 15th. We will be focused on the east side, and we're still deciding which section of the east side, but we know there's a couple different regions, especially closer to the waterfront side. So that will be coming up soon. And then we'll have an all-call wrap meeting in June as well, although we're switching the timing. We've had these meetings conflict with the date that the county is hosting its working groups. And so it just makes for a really long day for all of our service providers. So we will keep you all posted as the date for the June meeting. With the Dignity Moves transitional housing coming online, we also just wanted to note a few points about housing and transitional housing that have been that are in the pipeline right now, especially as we start to look at the numbers of how many people are actually experiencing homelessness in our community. We do have quite a bit happening in South Santa Barbara County right now between the units that were approved over at Veracruz Village in the city of Santa Barbara, more than 20 permanent supportive housing units there, as well as permanent supportive housing in the city of Goleta, about 60 units in Old Town at the Buena Tierra project, and then more through the Heritage Ridge project. In addition to all of this transitional housing that we're talking about. So we have a lot that is not yet open, but hypothetically, much of this will be opening within the year. And so we do expect to see quite a few of the people in our community be able to transition into housing as a result of all these projects. And that's in no small thanks to our county Department of Housing and Community Development and our housing authorities and everyone who's advocated to support these projects. So yes, and just making note, I did count Veracruz Village. They're not listed here only because they were approved before this calendar year, but they are coming online probably within the year as well. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and switch over to Jet to share from the point in time count. So take it away.
Right, thank you, Landon. Let me share my screen here. Sorry, my screen just went black. 1 minute, please. Yes, excuse my technical difficulties. I came into the office to avoid this, and that appears to not have helped anything.
Jet, let us know if you need us to pull it up and be the clicker for you.
Thank you.
Let me see if I can pull it up.
All right, I think I've got it now.
In the same spot, is that right?
Yeah. All right, thank you. Apologize for that. My name is Jet Black-Mertz, and I'm a housing program specialist senior with the County of Santa Barbara Housing and Community Development Division. And I'm here to talk to you today about the results from the 2023 point-in-time count of people experiencing homelessness. However, before I get into the details of our findings, I want to step back and provide a broad picture of what has been accomplished so far in the Community Action Plan to address homelessness. So through this coordinated plan, which was adopted by the Santa Barbara City Council in April of 2021, we have secured 442 permanent housing units, created 436 rapid rehousing opportunities, opened 140 interim housing beds, and transitioned 251 people out of homelessness, and that would just be in Q1 of 2023. So notably for the city of Santa Barbara, the Dignity Moves project has permanently housed 13 people since its opening. 69% of its current residents have experienced chronic homelessness, which is considered one of the harder populations to serve. So thank you everyone who is here helping to make all of this progress possible. So now that we've been given a brief overview of the growth of beds and units, we can talk about the people. So the point-in-time count is mandated by the Department of Housing and Urban Development and serves as a snapshot of homelessness in the county on a single night. HUD requires that we conduct this point-in-time count during the last 10 days of January. So it's a single piece of a larger puzzle, and the information gathered is informative, but should be considered within the context of all of the data available in our community, including the Homeless Management Information System, data gathered from individual service providers, the Fulcrum mapping software, which is used to help map encampments, and the coordinated entry system, among others. The County Housing and Community Development Division of the Community Services Department provided oversight for the point-in-time count, while also working with Simtech Solutions, SB Act, and more than 400 community members. So HUD has a very strict definition of who is counted and who is not counted during the point-in-time count. Volunteers receive training on the count logistics, best practices, and methods of engagement. We even have behavioral wellness come and give a talk about safety when engaging people living on the streets. The Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development has a strict definition, like I mentioned. The restrictions of these definitions are built into the mobile app that volunteers use to conduct the survey. If a respondent states that they have slept in any of the included locations on the left-hand side of your screen, then the volunteer continues the survey. However, if the respondent names any of the not included locations as the place they spent the previous night, the survey prompts the volunteer to thank the person for their time and move on. This way, we are not counting people who are, or we're giving it our best attempt to not count people who are not considered homeless under the HUD definition. Countywide, 1,887 persons experiencing homelessness were counted, which represented a 3.7% decrease from the previous year. There's a shift between sheltered and unsheltered homelessness. The unsheltered population decreased by 12% from 1,367 to 1,202. The sheltered population increased by 15% from 595 to 685, which is surpassing our pre-pandemic totals. This means that there are more people experiencing homelessness in a sheltered setting than there were in previous years, proportionally speaking. People responding Black, African American, or African, and also those responding American Indian or Indigenous, were overrepresented in the count compared to the general population. I'll show some city-specific data for race later in the presentation. We also noted that families of Hispanic ethnicity are also overrepresented in comparison to the general population. Unfortunately, we're still seeing the impacts of COVID-19, with over 15% of those surveyed indicating that their current experience of homelessness was a direct result of COVID-19. This could include loss of income due to sickness or business closures. Continuing with our key observations, there are several subpopulations identified in the community action plan that I referenced earlier, including veterans and families. There's been a steady decline in the number of veterans experiencing homelessness between 2020 and today. There are some remarkable veteran service agencies who have been working to end veteran homelessness, and the results are amazing. With the pandemic eviction moratorium and financial aid, there was a dip in families with children experiencing homelessness in 2022, as you can see on that bottom chart. However, as aid is being scaled back and the eviction moratorium has ended, we're seeing a resurgence in unhoused families with children. So now I'm going to get a little bit more into city-specific data. The first bars of this graph show the county-wide count from 2020 to 2023. A count was not conducted in 2021 due to COVID concerns. You can see the fluctuation between those living unsheltered and those in shelters or transitional housing. I've noted the percentages of the 2023 county-wide sheltered versus unsheltered population and the percentage of the city of Santa Barbara. Through efforts such as the Dignity Moves shelter and intensive outreach, the sheltered and unsheltered populations of Santa Barbara are nearly 50-50, where countywide, there's about 1/3 of the unhoused population is sheltered. So here's a more comprehensive breakdown of the unhoused population by city and region. And then I feel like this graph gives a really nice visual of the sheltered versus unsheltered in city and region. Again, the efforts within the city of Santa Barbara are apparent. So here's a more detailed look at persons counted in their vehicles. Countywide, the sleeping location of those surveyed, roughly 1/3 in each recognized category: outside or on the street, in their vehicles, or in interim housing. Volunteers are instructed not to knock on windows or disturb occupants, so a standardized extrapolation method is used. It's estimated that about 1 person occupies a car or van, 1.2 people are in an RV, and 1.8 people are in a tent or a makeshift shelter. The city of Santa Barbara saw a 25% decrease in people living in their vehicles between 2022 and 2023. Again, we can see another impact of the pandemic on chronic homelessness. In 2022, there is a dip in the number of people reporting they had been unhoused for at least 12 months and have a HUD-defined disability. And this number has since rebounded. So you see 620 in 2020, and then 565 in 2022, and then 618 again back in 2023. The blue bars on each of these charts show the county-wide number, while the yellow are specific to the city of Santa Barbara. So first we're looking at the gender. It is a fairly close ratio male to female here between the city of Santa Barbara and the county-wide population. However, most notably on this graph, the population experiencing homelessness in the city of Santa Barbara skews much older than the unhoused county as a whole, particularly for those over 55, which I've boxed here. There are 7 people who are 80 years old or older in the city of Santa Barbara currently on the coordinated entry system list, awaiting a match to housing. So this is looking at just countywide data, but it really highlights the families versus individuals, Hispanic versus non-Hispanic. So a majority of individual survey respondents, 64%, identified as non-Hispanic, while 36% of the individuals identified as Hispanic. A notable discrepancy is the overrepresentation of Hispanic families. 21% of the families in Santa Barbara County responded as non-Hispanic, while 79% of the families experiencing homelessness responded as Hispanic. In addition to ethnicity, respondents are also asked their race. The race categories on your screen are defined by HUD. The dark blue is the racial makeup of the entire county population, not just the homeless population. The orange is the countywide point and time count data, and the yellow is the Santa Barbara specific data. As I mentioned earlier, Black, African American, African, and American Indian Indigenous people are overrepresented in the point in time count compared to the general population. However, this is even more apparent within the city of Santa Barbara, where we have for American Indian and Indigenous 7% versus 1% of the total population of the county. And for Black, African American, or African, 9% versus 2% of the total county population. For HUD reporting, mental illness and substance use disorder require that the condition is, quote, expected to be long-term or indefinite duration in order to qualify. However, this typically results in a lower count. Because of this, the data displayed here are without the HUD long-term qualifier, which gives a more accurate representation of the conditions those surveys reported. A low rate of reported substance abuse in person living in vehicles impacted the overall percentage when factored into the substance use data as a whole. 51% of those living unsheltered outdoors reported a substance use disorder, SUD, while 33% living in shelters reported an SUD, and only 5% of those living in vehicles reported an SUD. And so that is something that we are digging deeper into to figure out why there is that discrepancy between those who are unsheltered outdoors and those who are unsheltered in their vehicles. So just let these maps soak in a little bit. The top map shows the individuals counted in 2023, and then the bottom map shows the individuals counted in 2022. The difference between the dots, the green dots indicate 9 or fewer individuals located in a certain area, while the yellow dots indicate 10 or more. So it's not a difference in quality, but just a difference in quantity. There's a notable decrease in the number of people counted in the State Street corridor and along the waterfront near Santa Barbara City College. So please keep in mind that we use a blitz canvassing method that covers all census tracts in the county to control for year-over-year anomalies. Some of the contributing factors to these decreases may be a large number of vouchers utilized, an increase in interim shelter beds, and a continued collaborative outreach effort. And so the specific areas that I'm talking about here are, you see these large pockets at the bottom here along the waterfront and then also along the State Street corridor, whereas in 2023, those large, the yellow dots have decreased significantly in these areas. So these next few slides will provide a little more detail on where people were able to locate housing. We mentioned in the previous slide that there are less people in the downtown and waterfront area experiencing homelessness. So where are they going? One of the housing opportunities available over the past year was the Emergency Housing Voucher, or EHV. These vouchers were available countywide. This map shows the location where the voucher holders located a unit to rent, with the chart on, with the chart on the right showing Santa Barbara or Santa Barbara adjacent zip codes in which units were located. And I've boxed those off over here for you. So the vouchers were one part of that equation. In addition to counting people, our team is also tasked with counting beds dedicated to people experiencing homelessness. The green line is the number of permanent or permanent supportive housing beds. The orange is the number of interim beds, which include shelters, transitional housing, or bridge housing. And the blue are the leased up rapid rehousing vouchers that were available. Several permanent and interim housing projects have been added to the continuum of care since 2020. And this has resulted in an increase of 787 beds, which is 46%, dedicated to persons that are or were experiencing homelessness when housed. Rapid rehousing openings peaked during the pandemic with coronavirus relief funds. So you can see that here. And these funds are no longer available as they were fully expended during the emergency period. So we had that peak during COVID, and now we're trending downward again with the rapid rehousing vouchers. Beds created through interim housing continue to grow. This past week, Santa Barbara County Board of Supervisors approved 90 beds at the formal June former juvenile hall site near Hollister and Modoc, which is called La Posada. The city of Santa Maria broke ground on Hope Village, which will have 94 beds, including 10 for transitional aged youth. And the pallets that were used in the Isla Vista Park during the peak of the pandemic, which you may remember, have since been moved and repurposed at Bridge House in Lompoc, where it's now called Rainbow Village. There are some exciting things in the works for the county's Cayo Real campus, as well as the Father Virgil Cordano Day Center. So we anticipate this trend in growth of interim housing to continue. Here are a few more pictures of new interim housing beds recently added. We have the Santa Barbara Dignity Move site, which is in downtown Santa Barbara, which added 33 units. Again, Lompoc Rainbow Village added 40 units. In Isla Vista, we opened Hedges House of Hope, which is up to 50 beds. Santa Barbara, the third floor of Hospitality House for Salvation Army added 24 beds in 12 rooms. Lompoc, there's 6 beds in a single family home now available. And Santa Barbara reestablished at Path 12 beds. So one of the main components of these are the services that are offered. And these include meals, transportation, security, case management, housing navigation, public health, behavioral health services, and links to substance use disorder treatment services with the objective of transitioning residents to permanent housing. And so these are not simply places for people to stay. These are places for people to move on from into a more stable and permanent situation. So I will stop here and open it up for any questions or discussion that you all may have.
Thank you, Jed. I'd love to start us off. That's all right. I'm wondering, we've been talking a lot about behavioral health concerns, and I'm wondering if there's a comparison between the slide you have of substance use and serious mental illness versus previous years.
I do not have that data at my fingertips. Let me get back to the slide that you were referencing.
Yeah, no problem.
So I don't have it at my fingertips, but I am able to drop in the chat the link to the full point in time count. And also on our website, we have the point in time count report from previous years as well.
Great. Go ahead, Gordon.
Yeah, Jed, a quick question. Do you have any idea how many of the 618 chronically homeless are also unsheltered?
Let me get to that slide. I don't believe I have that down to city level data. But again, that's something that I will be able to, I can look that up and get that information over to you. I don't know that we made that distinction.
Okay, great.
I don't think we made that distinction as part of the report.
Yeah, we didn't make it as the part of the report, but I think we can go back and look at the 618 to see how many, what percentage were unsheltered. I will say that I think Jed even mentioned at the beginning, like in the new Dignity Move shelter, that 69% of those sheltered there are chronically homeless. So, and I think Jonathan's on and could probably share that Path is probably 50% or more. Our data consistently shows about 60% of folks at Path are chronically homeless. So my guess is it won't be, you know, as revealing as you might think, that we definitely have people experiencing chronic homelessness in our shelter system.
Great, thanks.
Emily.
Hey guys, I just have a question about the Santa Maria shelter bed count. I saw that there was 162 individuals sheltered on the time of the pit, and so I was just wondering where those beds were located so that we know all of the sheltering options in Santa Maria. I know there's the 90 with Good Samaritan, and then I'm not sure how many are on the family shelter, but if I could get some clarity on that, that would be awesome.
Yeah, and I think that would be mostly Good Samaritan beds. I don't think we don't have the shelter by shelter bed breakdown. As part of this report, we don't get that granular as far as the data that we give to the public, but we do have that.
Yeah, and we do have the housing inventory chart. So I think maybe, Emily, what you're thinking, so we have the Santa Maria Emergency Shelter. Also on that same campus is the Family Emergency Shelter, as well as a couple of other projects within the city limits. So would be happy to, I'm trying to pull up the full HIC right now.
Yeah,
To just name those projects.
that'd be awesome. Thank you so much.
Joe, we have some questions in the chat about whether the full report is going to be shared with the public.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been out there for a while. And so Landon, I think you dropped that link in there to the report that's been posted on the county and the COC website.
And we'll share that through our all call wrap email blast as well.
Yeah, and I would be happy to send this over to you, Landon, as a PDF, and you can send that out to attendees of this meeting as well, so they have the Santa Barbara specific data.
That's great. It was helpful seeing the comparison between numbers of families year over year. Do you have that data at a city level? I know it's not large numbers of families, so I don't know if it's easy to break down, but
I could take a look and see how easily I could pull that out for the families. The reason why I have to think about whether we have this or not is this is one of our main reporting mechanisms to the Department of Housing and Urban Development. And we conduct this on behalf of the COC, which encompasses the entire county geography. And then as we do presentations to the individual cities, we're distilling the data down. And so I don't have a lot of the city specific data at my fingertips, but it is something that I'll be able to break out.
And I'll just share, this is Kimberly to jump on. So I'm Kimberly Albers. I'm the Homeless Assistance Program Manager. So really quick on Emily's question, the shelters in Santa Maria include the Safe House and also the Domestic Violence Emergency Shelter. I think that may be where you're not getting it to add up from the regular emergency shelter and family emergency shelter. And then when you're thinking of those 93 households, there were a fair number of folks that were housed or sheltered, or I guess we call them unsheltered for this purpose, in the safe parking program in January. They really had a spike in families experiencing homelessness, which were primarily in South County because that's where they have the lots. But we did, most of the families that were the households that were counted that were families with minor children were located in either the transition house shelter or the family emergency shelter in Santa Maria or in Lompoc. So pretty easy for us to give you those family shelter breakdowns. But for as far as unsheltered families living in their vehicles, those were primarily in South County.
Thank you.
I'm just thinking about general takeaways and how to share this, to the people who want the 30-second version of what's going on with numbers of people experiencing homelessness. And what I'm getting from this, and I'm just curious if this is accurate if this is accurately represented, is that we are seeing overall decreases at both the countywide and city level, which is great news. And a lot of that can be attributed to all these transitional housing and shelter beds and outreach efforts as well. But we're still seeing a lot of these special populations or vulnerable populations. So families, people of color, those with substance abuse disorders or serious mental health conditions. These populations are either increasing among our populations that are still experiencing homelessness, or at least are still maybe overrepresented.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think while it's not a HUD special population, I would like to add in there those 55 and older. The older population of people experiencing homelessness is going to continue to grow, especially as the baby boomer generation ages. I think that's going to be one of our next hurdles that we're going to have to tackle in the coming years.
Liz, we shared city specific data on a number of the slides. And I think we had met with you and Barbara to share some of the other city specific data, but we don't put out a city report per se, just the, but we can, extract any data as that's available. Not all data can be boiled down to the city level, but we tried with this report really to give you everything that we did have city specific is included in the report.
Okay, thank you. I thought I heard that you were going to do that, so I misunderstood that. But what you presented today to this group would be a great item to share. So if you could send me that, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
So yes, Landon, back to your question, our overall numbers are going down. However, we do see these special populations, except veterans. We're doing a really good job with veterans. We do see the special populations either maintaining or growing.
And I think maybe the takeaway from the veteran population, right, is that we've had significant housing resources for veterans for a number of years. So it's like, well, what's making the difference for veterans? Having adequate resources, right? Consistently funded and ongoing. Whereas what we're seeing in other populations, right, is 1 year, 2 year, highly prescribed funding. So I definitely think, the HUD and all others are learning too, is how they've tackled veteran homelessness across the nation. The types of declines that we're seeing are nationwide. And so that shows us, right, when we have the right resources that are continuous, that we can make it the number change, even though we do have a significant inflow.
We also have a comment in the chat that the one line takeaway should be, we've got a plan and are being successful, which I like.
Yeah. Yeah, the community action plan to end homelessness was adopted multiple jurisdictions across the county, and so it's really done a great job of creating a cohesive effort as we move forward. And so we're able to move the needle in a coordinated way across multiple jurisdictions.
Gordon.
Yeah, just since the definition of families is so broad, I guess as I understand it, it's any two people or more who are living together or staying together. Is there any additional data on, the ages? How many of these families are related by marriage or by blood? Additional information to kind of drill down on the nature of the relationship between individuals who are, either temporarily or permanently living together.
So
Gordon, I was going to say, Jet, I'm sure you're going to say the same thing I was, that in this report, what we're showing as families are only households with minor children. We are not showing you couples or 3 adults living in the same household. This is specifically, again, aligning with HUD qualification that it really is described as adults with children or adults without children. So with those 93 households you're seeing represent, I believe it was well over 150 minor children.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a big number.
It's a big number, and we'll be the first to tell you that the point in time count is probably the worst mechanism we have of counting families with minor children, because they just aren't findable at 5 a.m. to 9 a.m., right? Because they're going to be in locations more hidden, right? Likely, like I said, in vehicles where it's just harder to determine a family with minor children in the PIC count. So on an annual basis in the homeless management information system, it's actually quite a bit larger percentage that are families with minor children. So I think as a community, right, we have a vision in our face of, in our mind of who is experiencing homelessness. But families with minor children are a very significant part of that population. Domestic violence survivors with minor children are a very significant part of that population. So it isn't a one size fits all. It isn't just people with mental illness. It isn't people with just substance abuse disorders. We have an affordable housing crisis. People are falling out because of lack of affordable housing. And so, yeah, definitely want everyone to hear. And we didn't, I don't have it right now as I'm thinking of it, but we generally see, like I said, a much higher percentage actually of families in that year-round cycle rather than who we can find in the point in time count. So, but family defined for us in this report is only those with minor children. So I don't want anyone to walk away thinking that couples or households that are only adults were included in those numbers.
Yeah, and just a sort of side note to that, as we are looking at these numbers and going through the percentages do indicate groups of human beings, and each number is a single human being who either is housed or is not housed. And so while overall we are moving the needle, that's still, 1,887 people who are living unhoused at the moment, or at the moment on a single day at the end of January.
Thank you. I do appreciate that clarification. Any other questions for Jed or Kimberly? Well, thank you both so much. We really appreciate just having a better understanding of what's going on, because this helps all of us to know how we can respond. So we appreciate it. And we will share out the report further. Go ahead. Sorry, Jack.
No, and we do try to do the best we can with making the data as clear as possible, making it consumable for the public and making it actionable and applicable locally while still fulfilling those HUD standards. And so I appreciate you all spending so much time and giving so much attention to this, because it is, while it is just a single piece of the larger puzzle, it is a really great way to draw community attention to what's going on.
So with that, I'm going to transition us just to talking about this group and where our community is headed. We have this citywide Act on Homelessness collaborative that's been in operation since 2019, specifically working alongside the county's community action plan to try and implement some goals for the city of Santa Barbara to try and address the impact of homelessness here. And so I'm going to pull up, we did a survey in the last couple of months of all of our collaborative partners, including many people who are on this call today, just to ask sort of what has been helpful, what things should we adapt moving forward. And so I'm going to share some of those findings. I see a thumbs up if you can see my screen. All right, thank you. Okay. So as I said, this was to try and assess the participants in this collaborative's experience and your perceptions of this collaborative. And in total, we had 61 responses, and these were from service providers, community members, people experiencing homelessness, and about a third of them were community members or business owners. So we do really want to appreciate those community members who participate, since you all are not required to be a part of these meetings like the rest of us are. But we need your feedback in this process. So this is a little small, so I'm just going to go through this, but we asked everyone to rate on a Likert scale, basically from 0 to 5, the effectiveness of the collaborative. And so when you see a 0, that would mean not effective at all, up to the 3 would be a neutral, and then 5 would be very effective. And so the Backbone organization equipped partners for effective advocacy, including providing talking points, was one of our stronger ones. I'm just going to go through some of the highlights here. Going down to the Backbone organization, which is SB Act, has been neutral and inclusive, and that the Backbone organization has effectively managed complex relationships. One of our lower scores was around the activities that we're implementing. So it was in the sort of neutral to agree range, 3.4. Partner agencies, organizations, and community advocates hold each other accountable for implementing activities as planned. So there wasn't a disagreement with this statement, but it wasn't a strong agreement. In general, we received fairly positive feedback about the forms of communication across the collaborative, whether it was about homelessness activities throughout the city of Santa Barbara, about services being provided, about new initiatives, et cetera. Another kind of lower score here was in that neutral to agree range, 3.73 on individuals, especially residents and business owners, having a deeper understanding of ongoing community efforts to address homelessness and housing. So there's still some sense of not fully understanding and grasping the problem and what's being done to address it. And this is hard. This is something that we're just always going to be working on as a community, but we want to look for ways to make this more digestible for our community. As regards our common agenda, we had a fairly strong response that the populations and issues targeted by the Act on Homelessness Collaborative receive greater attention from participating organizations and formal stakeholders. So some of the quotes are listed here. An individual said, the collaboratives made a significant difference in spurring local entities to action regarding homelessness by showcasing what other organizations and communities are doing effectively and offering replicatable methods. Another person said the collaborative addressed the Pershing Park encampment specifically, and it helped to organize service providers to be more effective in their outreach and response. And it built a stronger coalition of support around a challenging issue. As regards our communication, this individual said the collaborative did a good job of increasing communication across stakeholders and moving us all into a more streamlined, coordinated system. As regards our effectiveness as the backbone agency, SB Act, this individual said that the collaborative helped to advocate for more collaboration and innovation among leadership and programs. And then we also had some people share that they felt that we needed more political activism, since additional affordable housing can only be provided by actions from our community representatives who pass the laws, ordinances, and contracts for construction. And we can't agree more. This is the only way that projects like La Posada Dignity Moves are able to get through, is if we get people out. And so we need to continue looking for ways to engage our community to show up for these projects. And then our strongest score was around the backbone being neutral and inclusive. And so just a general appreciation about having that neutral partner there to lead. As well as managing all the complex relationships, whether it's with business owners or residents or service providers. Now to some of the lower scores. When we looked at the wraps, and so these meetings that we've been having on a monthly basis to try and address neighborhood concerns, I guess this is not, I'm sorry, I skipped ahead. This is not one of the lower scores, this is one of the higher ones, but that community members felt that they provide a sense of psychological safety for our participants. So there was a general sentiment that we want to keep these meetings as a place for community members to share concerns, although we may adapt the form. So now we'll get to the lower scores. So as I mentioned, the lowest score that the collaborative received was around this accountability between the different organizations for implementing the activities that we planned. And so this individual said, we've all gotten better at coordinating. We're still not getting results. We're still not good at getting results. Conditions on the street look a little different, though I personally know many people who've been helped or housed. There's always seemingly an unending supply of new people with issues living unsheltered. Some people named specific agencies that they hope to see held more accountable. This is not to call out those agencies. These are just specific quotes from individuals. Another one was around community members actually understanding these issues better. As I said, this was one of our lower scores. And so people shared that they needed less meetings, that they weren't able to attend many of them, and that this person shared that created more confusion. And then this individual said, I wasn't involved enough to speak of or have a strong opinion on some of these topics. I typically wasn't able to commit enough time to the amount of meetings. So as we're looking ahead, we're trying to think through how can we offer sort of coordinated efforts and inviting community members in a way that isn't maybe so meeting intensive. Another was around all of the partner agencies and the organizations understanding each other's work and how it supports our common goals. And so we've heard that one of the biggest challenges is that many agencies just don't know what the other organizations are doing. And so as we're moving forward with this collaborative, we just want to begin thinking through how do we address all of these different needs that were raised. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. We're really striving to try and figure out new ways to make this more accessible and understandable for community members, to try and address some of those issues that we saw. And then we're also talking with all of our different partner agencies about how do we build in that accountability. Just in the last year, people with lived experience of homelessness initiated a campaign to have a survey about all of our shelters in the city of Santa Barbara and how are they doing and are they effective and are they safe for people experiencing homelessness. And so we have this sense that there needs to be more efforts like this to be able to create more accountability within the community for all of our agencies, not just the shelters. And so we are looking forward to moving ahead and continuing the RAP meetings, but we may be changing some of the structures. We are looking to expand this collaborative to have more of a South County-wide focus to be more in line with our county-wide approach to homelessness. And we do welcome feedback in this process as we go. I don't know, Liz or Barbara, if you want to share more at this moment, but I do want to just open it up in general for community members if you have any questions.
I don't really have anything to add. I think you've done a really good job of presenting all the data and definitely given us food for thought as to what to look for as we approach the next phase of this collaborative. I think the feedback was really valuable, not just for you guys, but for us as a city and all our partners to kind of really process what we've accomplished in the last 3 years and continue the rest of the work. And we've identified gaps and now how to address those gaps, I think will hopefully be our next phase.
So are there any other general questions? We have, I think, some new faces from the community on this call today. And you have pretty much everyone related to homelessness from the city of Santa Barbara and the county of Santa Barbara at your disposal right now. So this is a great time for any community members who might have any questions. And if we don't have any just yet.
And Landon, I just wanted to share too that everyone's calendar is really, really challenging, and continuing to host SBACT hosting these and facilitating these meetings and folks continuing to participate has been, for me, critically important. And I just want to share gratitude for that. We don't operate like the county continuum of care. So it's not funding that brings folks to this platform, right? So it's just city specific issues, wanting to work more closely together, collaborate more, be more effective and efficient in our delivery of services. But the motivating factor is simply that. So I just, again, appreciate the ongoing participation when possible, for us to be able to address concerns in a timely way from the city perspective. And again, continuing to have more coordination across our city departments as well as with service provider partners. So grateful for the collaborative and their role in continuing to facilitate that.
Yes, Larry. Larry, you're muted.
Okay, I found the unmute button.
Okay.
As a community member, I just want you all to know that it's I think, very important for the community to understand what you all are doing. I mean, it's really pretty amazing if you stop and think about the coordination between all the individuals and agencies. And I know a lot of people out there are going, what's going on? What's being done with the homeless? No one knows, well, not no one, but not many people understand the depth of knowledge that you all have and what's actually being done and in the pipeline. Not everybody reads Newshawk and gets the information. And certainly the people at next door don't have a clue. So I think more community outreach uh, would be good. That's it. And thank you for all the great work that you all are doing.
And Larry, you've joined us on our wrap walks and you've been participating virtually in the middle of COVID. I'm kind of curious, I attempted to step into Nextdoor probably a year and a half ago, and it was not the happiest moment of my career. Do you have any other suggestions for avenues that we could communicate more effectively to the broader public?
I'll have to think about that. Off the top of my head, I would say, you know, more press releases focused on the independent Newshawk. That's one way of getting to the community. Next door, for all the NIMBYs there, I think that's a good possibility, although I know that you've tried that, Barbara, with not much success, but every effort counts.
I appreciate that.
So, yeah, thank you. So I don't really know what else could be done. I don't think people have it in their consciousness to go to the city website and find out the information. They need to have it more spoon-fed.
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly what the best way of doing that is.
Thank you, Larry. That is, we couldn't agree more. And we're actively working on different ways to try and get news out, and especially good news too, because we know there are people being housed literally almost every week, whether just into shelter or into permanent housing. And so we'd like to be able to get some of those numbers and stories out there more.
And then one more thing. And then, of course, there's the issue that weighs on a lot of people's mind, which is the screamers, the people with mental health issues. And I know that is an ongoing discussion at the state level. But a word that says, yes, we are aware of this and we are looking at potential remedies. I think that would settle people.
Yeah, that's great, Larry. We're working on this sort of behind the scenes because the behavioral health concern it's a growing crisis even outside of homelessness. And so this is something that we're focusing on, but I think you're right that the community at large may not know that that's a topic of conversation behind the scenes. So.
Exactly. Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
So if you do happen to be new today, I will just share, and especially if you're wondering, what do I do with all this information that I've just gained? I'll just share a couple ways to be a part of the solutions with us. At least within the city of Santa Barbara, we do have a reporting link, which is a way for us to be able to identify individuals who may be in need of services, as well as to address issues related to illegal dumping or fire hazards. And so we encourage you to please report those to us. Those will then be shared with all of our outreach providers so that we can address homelessness issues, individuals in need, encampments, et cetera, within the city limits. And then we do have neighborhood specific meetings. And so if you're interested in joining a call specifically about the East Side neighborhood or the State Street waterfront region, I've put the link in the chat window where you can find the information about where and when to access those meetings. But that is where we can actually talk about the specific impacts within our neighborhoods and interface with the outreach providers to make sure that they're reaching out to those individuals in need. So we are about at time. And so I am going to close it up today, but just want to thank you all for such a good discussion today. And as I mentioned, that Dignity Moves meeting will be on May 30th, 6 p.m. at Living Faith Community Church. So we hope some of you will be able to come out, and we'll have our next neighborhood walk on the 15th. So stay tuned for more email invites.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Have a great day.